you remember my imaginary friends?
You can't remember if you're imaginary friends or the voices in your fucking head.
What's the difference? Do you remember what you would yell to me when I was off in my own world?
Earth to Gert.
Where are you, Gert? Earth to Gert. Gert. Earth to Gert. So I'm starting a podcast, and that's the title.
Earth to Gert.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Earth to Gert. I am half winging this, and this is half scripted. I had every intention to record this episode tonight, and then I had an emotional breakdown, and I tried to tell myself that I couldn't record because I've been crying for the last hour or two. But I wouldn't want any of my guests to think they can't show up crying. So I'm going to give myself the same grace I would give one of my guests, and I'm going to show up crying to this episode. So fuck. Like, everything happens for a reason, right? Like, people come into our lives for a reason, right? So, just this chain of events happened in my life, and I started writing, and thinking about the days when I was suicidal, and not even when I was suicidal, but like the days when I was just passively suicidal. And one night while I was writing this episode, I had this one journal entry that I wanted to search for that I remember writing a few years ago. And I was flipping through the pages of that journal, and I stopped on some pages that they're pages that reflect how scared I was to do this podcast. And some of the stuff that I battled back then is the stuff that I battled again a little bit this year. One of the ideas I have always had for this podcast is to share some of my journal entries with you, to sort of, I don't know, be honest about what the work that I have done has looked like. But obviously that's like super scary because, you know, who shares their journal with the fucking world? So I did record like a rough draft version of that the other night. And then again, everything happens for a reason. I am not going with that version because obviously I have more to say. And the universe had to show me one more journal entry. So the only thing holding me back from sharing these journal entries is fear. And I tried to say goodbye to fear a long time ago. And I know that that's a pretty cool feeling on the other side of that fear. So the entry that I found first, I'm not going to read all of it, most of it though. This was from March 18th, 2021. I finally meditated tonight. I'm going to face what I'm afraid of and figure out who the fuck I am. I thought a lot about the podcast and how uncomfortable the thought of actually doing it is. I see the end product. I see myself successfully working from home. I see myself talking about how I overcame one of the biggest T events of my life so far, and my life was not ruined. My life was not ruined. She did not ruin my life. I see the layout of these goals. These feel manic because this is so far outside of my comfort zone. I have a quote, a dream written down with a date becomes a goal. I want to have started my podcast by 2026. Another quote, a goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. And then I have a list of things I want to have completed each year up to 2026. And I am happy to say that I have completed most of what's on here. Definitely changed directions somewhere in some places. One of my favorites is continue to learn, stay curious and kind. And then the next day I wrote, I have so much freaking anxiety just sitting there. I can't tell if it's work or boss related or if it's the feeling of being energized, activated, manic. Those are words I had in quotes. Or is it confidence? I talked to a friend today and felt good making that connection. Reagan had a fantastic post today. I'm reading/listening to this book. I think about having some sort of online presence, podcast, YouTube, Instagram. I have ideas for videos or episodes, and then all this anxiety appears. I know I have these limiting thoughts. I always think about my childhood connections and their opinions of this version of me. I feel the judgment or jealousy already. I feel that they're talking about me 8th grade feeling. I know the limiting identity I have about myself that will be extremely hard to let go of. I am too shy. I do not like to be the center of attention. I don't want to be noticed. I feel like others view, in parentheses I wrote, have actually viewed me as manic, unwell, emotionally unstable, whatever you want to call it, but I felt confident. I feel sure of this process, and while I don't know how it will unfold, I know it'll change my life. Yeah, that whole change in my life part is a giant understatement. So back to the sort of scripted part of this episode. I was chatting with someone recently about my new job, about the podcast, and a little bit about my story, the depression, anxiety, and, suicidal stuff. And he was like, so how do you, and I chimed in and I said, stay on the side of the glass. So it has been almost 15 years since I was actively suicidal. Since the days where I would think about it every single day, thinking of ways to do it, places to do it, where I should jump from, when to do it, that thought, hurry up and do it before they get any older, would scream. And I just was constantly imagining it, imagining how each person in my life would respond, imagining what dying would feel like, imagining the relief my soul would feel, even though I had no idea I had a soul back then, but that's a whole another episode. And it has been about 7 years since I have been passively suicidal. Not necessarily thinking of doing it myself anymore, but hoping like a bus would take me out or some disease, cancer, whatever thyroid disease they always tested me for, but nope, sorry, just good old depression. And this is where the other journal entry comes in. I was thinking about this next paragraph that I wrote. In thinking about this, I remembered this very specific plan that I had when my kids were grown up, when they were off doing their own thing. I had a plan to end my life then. Like I just needed to grind it out until my kids became adults, and then I would Thelma and Louise myself off the Grand Canyon. And when I wrote that the other night, that must be what triggered remembering this journal entry. And I'm not going to read all of this. I was so happy in this journal entry. And I remember this time period of my life. I was so happy. I was miserable living in this society, I guess, like working so much. And I was in the weeds of parenthood. But I was so excited. But even in that, I was still so not okay. To put exclamation points after these sentences. Forever dreaming of turning that steering wheel. Exclamation point. Can't wait to Thelma and Louise this place. Exclamation point. Like, God, I guess I didn't realize how sick I was. I have zero doubt that if I had ever truly disclosed what my brain said back then, that I would have been and maybe should have been on the other side of that glass. So my response to that question, how do I stay on the side of the glass, was basically just a laundry list of all of my favorite tools. So I have been using this tools in a toolbox analogy, I think, honestly, since my very first counseling session with Angie 10 years ago. I recently had this idea expanded a little bit. I'm not going to retell my boss's same story about being a woodworker and all that, but basically you have your toolbox, right? But you also have your tool belt. The toolbox is full of all the bigger tools, maybe the ones that you don't use as often, and your tool belt is full of those tools you use every day, the ones you know instinctually where they are, and you can just grab them when you need them. So for this episode, I thought that I would tell you about the tools in my tool belt and toolbox, keeping me from wearing the paper scrubs and ever having a brain that's excited about wanting to leave this world, because I fucking love my life so much right now. So I don't know if I already said this, but I may have done an episode like this last year, but here are these tools again. And these are in some particular order for me based off what my priority list is. I'm going to go with sleep as my number one. Sleep is so incredibly important for brain health. Sleep is when our bodies rest and digest. And for me, like having a pretty consistent sleep schedule is very important. When I'm not feeling like a bag of assholes, I usually have a pretty solid like nighttime routine. And for me, good sleep hygiene starts with my morning walk. That morning walk, getting direct sunlight first thing in the morning, is so crucial for the circadian rhythm and melatonin production later on. So that leads me to my second tool, which is movement. That morning walk with my little burn bag is a non-negotiable for me. We typically get in at least 2 15-minute walks a day, but that morning walk is, well, I live in an apartment, so we have to get outside first thing in the morning, but we actually go for a whole walk around the block every day, almost rain or shine. There's probably only a handful of times out of the year where we don't get our morning walk in. And walking just in general is very good for brain health. It's great to calm the nervous system and lower lower blood sugar levels. It's a great way to process the shit that's going on in your brain. And there's actually a link between walking and EMDR. So yeah, gives you that bilateral stimulation. And I don't subscribe. Sorry, I'm so fidgety right now. I don't subscribe to the idea that every human body has to exercise, like exercise in quotes, in the way that most of us think of what exercise is. I do think most bodies would benefit from intentional movement with an increased heart rate, however you want to achieve that, and somewhat consistently. I think that's key, not just to physical health, but mental and emotional health too. And I do think strength training is key to longevity, especially for women. We really have to keep our bones healthy. Number 3 for me, and like these are just go together. Like, I don't know if there's a 1, 2, or 3 for these. These all 3 have to happen almost every day in my life. Number 3 would be food. During my actively suicidal days, a friend of mine told me to stop eating shit. It took me 10 years and a health coach training program to really know what that meant. And now that I do, you will rarely catch me eating shit. Like, but you will always catch me eating. I snack all day long on Whole Foods. The stuff that I used to eat and drink was not food. It was poison. It was highly inflammatory, and I know my brain suffered the most from that inflammation. I know that inflammation was a huge contributing factor to my symptoms of depression and anxiety. I have such a different relationship with food now. Like, real whole foods are a priority in my life. Food is fuel. Food is information for my body. It's about giving my body what it needs first, not at all about restricting it from what it can have. The cells of my brain and body need the information from the foods I eat. It needs the carbohydrates. It needs the protein. It needs the fats. It needs the vitamins and minerals. I prioritize foods that give my body that information. And when I don't, like, it's almost worse for me when I don't eat anything. Like, a lot of people go into a calorie deficit and they restrict themselves. I don't know. I just focus on ingredients. Like, what am I putting in my body actually? Like, what is this stuff? Number 4, I clearly need to do a little bit of right now. I get I get amped up when I talk about food. I'm sorry. And poisoning ourselves. Number 4 for me is breath work. Breathing is the cheapest, easiest, and fastest way to calm the fuck down when you're spiraling. And a consistent breathwork practice is honestly the cheapest, easiest, and fastest way to a healthier life. You have no idea how crucial your nervous system is to your physical and mental health, and our breathing directly affects that. Most of us are shallow breathers, never really taking the time or really having the time and space to breathe deep and slowly. The fast-paced, shallow breathing sends our nervous system the wrong information. Some of my favorite breathing techniques are box breathing and the 4-7-8 technique. I used to use the box breathing a lot when I had more of a desk job. I would do it before I would open my emails or make a difficult phone call. That one, you breathe in for 4, you hold it for 4, you exhale for 4, and then you hold for 4 again. And while I was sitting at my desk, I would draw a box while I did that. And I would just maybe do that a few times. I think that's actually what snipers use before they take somebody out. I don't know if that's true. Somebody can correct me if it's not. My other favorite one is the 4-7-8. It's an inhale for 4, hold for 7, and exhale for 8. This is my meditation one, my before bed relaxation technique. which brings me to tools number 5 and 6. My nighttime routine of meditation and journaling. One thing I want to highlight with meditation is that it does not clear my mind. I am not trying to achieve silence in my brain. So you are not a failure at meditation if you can't get your brain to turn off. That's not the point. Meditation is paying attention, noticing when your mind wanders and returning to your anchor, whether that's your breath, a guide, the birds. And if you want to try it, like, start small. I'd recommend setting a consistent time and place, being intentional about giving yourself that just 1 minute of breathing, whatever it is. And there are so many options available on YouTube to follow. My favorite dude is Jason Stevenson. He's more of a listen before bed, let it play as you fall asleep kind of dude. But there's a ton of shit out there for even if you're just having a panic attack, or if you want to find different breathwork techniques, YouTube's the place. And the other part of my nighttime routine, journaling, obviously a huge part of my life. I've been a pretty consistent journaler for close to 7 years now. Ironically, since my suicidal days have ended, I think journaling has contributed to not being a suicidal fuck. Maybe. So if you have never been a journaler, I am a huge fan of do not send letters as a great place to start. A lot of us come to doing work on ourselves because of the connections we have in our lives. So writing those do not send letters have been huge for me. I'm also a huge fan of the prompt, what's the story I'm telling myself? So if I'm going through something, whatever that situation is, like, what's the story I'm telling myself? And I'm a huge fan of gratitude practice. So just writing 3 things that I'm grateful for every day. And I like to, I love journaling. I like to name my insecurities out loud. And it's also the place where I like write down what I want for my future. So those are the tools I think that are in my tool belt, the ones I use every day, the one I just grab and use instinctually. They're just habits. That's just my lifestyle, now it's just me. I mean, obviously there are times when I'm, feeling some sort of way and maybe don't meditate as often as I should or could. There's definitely been times recently where I haven't journaled. So yeah. So tools in my toolbox, definitely counseling. Even though I'm not actively in counseling right now, that has been life-changing. I know it's not for everybody, but counseling absolutely saved me. Having that, I don't know, that space to just, I don't even know. I can't even that I guess that'll be a whole nother episode. And I would say that one of my next most important tools in my toolbox would be nature and hiking. And I guess these aren't in any particular order, but strength training. I try to do that a couple of times a week. Yoga was huge, 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 sort of life-changing thing in my life. When I first took the 30-day yoga challenge, I did it at home online. And one of the first things I said, like maybe 5 days in, is I wish I had tried yoga the first time my counselor ever mentioned it to me. But everything happens for a reason, and I found yoga when I did. I'm so glad. And the other huge tool in my life that I am not able to do this year is volleyball. Volleyball has saved me more times than I can count. One of my other favorite hobbies that I've picked up in the last few years is disc golf and paddleboarding and the sauna. You guys have all heard about the sauna, and just community and connection and creativity and podcasting and editing and honestly, I don't know. It's really hard to say what, I think it's the combination of all of it. But finally following my purpose, or just sort of getting closer to understanding what my purpose is. My purpose on this planet is to help people. And I'm just figuring out the best way for me to do that. This podcast is obviously a purpose of mine. I've said this before. It doesn't feel like I'm the only one doing this. I know that the universe is guiding me in this direction. So, yeah, those are the tools in my tool belt and toolbox keeping me on this side of the glass. And just please don't forget, if you are struggling, there is no shame in talking about it. When I was trying to back out of doing this episode, there was one particular Facebook comment that kept rattling in my brain. People care. Keep talking. So I'm going to keep talking, and I hope that if you ever feel like you need to talk, that you do find someone that you can talk to. I promise, once you get it out of your head, it really does take the power away. The first time that I opened up to someone and told her that I was suicidal, the relief that was lifted, I can't even explain it. So keep talking. Thank you all for listening.